Welcome to Oh Hell No with Nicole.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today we have Seth Power, who is a musician. Welcome, Seth. Thank you so much for coming on the Oh Hell No podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, I have so many questions for you.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to start off by asking you, how old were you when you realized you could sing?
That's that's kind of like it's a bit of a tricky question because I would say that I didn't. So like as a kid, I sang all the time, but it wasn't good, obviously, because you're a kid, so you're just kind of running around, yelling at the top of your lungs more than singing. But whenever I was probably like 13 or 14, what I did realize was that I had like a tone. I didn't have much of a voice yet. I was still developing it. But what I did have is a tone, and so I started working quite a lot on developing my voice. It took some time, to kind of get all of that down and work through all of those initial, just doing anything for the first time. Obviously, there's very few people that are just naturally talented, and so it took a long time to get to the point where I was comfortable with actually going out in public and singing, but. So I wouldn't say it was a binary thing as in like, oh, I can suddenly sing now. It was like it kind of emerged, and then I just kept developing that talent until I got to the point where it was just I could do it. It was after I finally was there.
Wow.
So.
That's amazing because your voice is like so amazing, and I love that like raspy tone that you have. It's just
Thank you.
I love it. So that's crazy that you're saying that you had the tone, but you worked on developing it more to where it is today.
Yeah, no, it took a long time.
Wow.
And I try to I use that to try to encourage people. Not even with just singing, just with anything really. So a lot of people just assume when they hear me now that I've always been able to sing like this, and that just wasn't the case. It was just something that took a lot of time and practice, and finally, I got and I'm still getting better. So hopefully, I'm working on a new album right now, and I can already tell a difference in just the control that I have over my voice. So hopefully, it'll just keep getting that way.
I'm sure it will. So when did you get into playing instruments?
I was 8 years old when I started playing piano. And I started taking lessons and doing recitals and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. But when I was 10, I got a guitar. And that was kind of like the end of my piano playing days. It was like once I got that guitar, I just put the piano to the side and never looked back. And it was just full speed ahead. My mom taught me initially. She taught me a song. I think it was "Leaving on a Jet Plane" by John Denver, and I probably played it hundreds of times. And then from there, I was partially self-taught, partially took lessons, and it was just something that I kept developing. Just on top of everything else. Going to school and playing sports and all that stuff. It was one of those things that I just loved it so much that I didn't think of it as like practice. I just enjoyed doing it, and so obviously over time I just got better at it.
So when did you make the conscious decision that you wanted to be an entertainer?
So I was a big athlete growing up. I played a lot of different sports, and I started doing open mics when I was like 15. And again, that was like kind of the beginning. Like I was saying earlier, that was the point where I was like, all right, I still need a lot of work, but I'm gonna go out in public and I'm gonna test this now. And so I would go out and I would do open mics, and I would play original songs, at 15 years old, and they were not very good, obviously. But people would come up to me afterwards, and I got a lot of encouragement from people who were just like, keep going, you've got a sound, you've got something there, you need to keep working on it, and you keep growing and keep developing, but just keep doing what you're doing. And so I did. And at this point, I had not decided that is what I wanted to do. I was still dead set on, playing sports professionally. Played a lot of soccer growing up, played a lot of football. And I actually walked on to the Mississippi State football team in 2011. And I did that for about a year and a half, and then I had to quit for a couple of different reasons, but primarily I just suffered a really bad concussion, and it just seemed like a bad idea to keep moving forward.
Wow.
But then I started playing music all the time. I mean, that was like how I made all my money. I was traveling to different towns and cities and all through Mississippi, playing in college towns and doing stuff like that. And so again, it was like it kind of emerged, I just, at this point, I still hadn't considered doing it professionally. I just knew that I loved doing it. And then at some point I got to a place where I was so comfortable on stage and so comfortable with writing music and performing music and being in that setting that I kind of presented the idea to myself that, okay, I think I'm going to actually do this now. And I had a little brief stint with a indie label, and that really helped me grow a lot. And then finally, I decided I was going to go at it alone, and that was about 2 years ago. And so I've been full speed ahead ever since.
Wow, that's amazing, because it seems like it wasn't always like the first choice, but it was something that was in you, and it I don't know, it feels like it got pushed to the forefront because, things happen and things shift around, and then it's like, okay, this is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the realization I had as well, because and it helped me in a lot of different areas of life, to kind of start reframing things that seemed like negative things at the time and saying, oh, well, that wasn't necessarily a negative. It was just meant to kind of guide me in a different direction. Because when I stopped playing football, I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
But it was like weeks later that I got my first offer to play a gig, like a real gig, 2.5, 3 hours in front of a lot of people. And so it was almost immediate that I stepped out of that life into, this new one.
So getting that first gig, what were some of the fears that you had to overcome to say, okay, I'm going to do this gig and I'm going to keep going after this? Like, was there anything major that you remember? Like, getting on stage, I know you performed gigs, before for like a smaller audience, but did you have like stage fright or anything like that you had to overcome?
Not really. There was like the normal amount of butterflies and anxiety associated with like performing in front of a group of people. But at the same time, it was, like I said, I had all of these other experiences to draw from like just growing up as an athlete and playing in big games as an athlete, whether it was soccer, football, whatever it was, baseball sometimes. I was used to the idea of like having to perform in front of an audience, even though it's a totally different thing. It was that part of me was still gave me a foundation for going out in front of people and doing something, like playing music. So the activities were different, but the mindset was very similar. And so the first time I did it, I just loved it. It was like an immediate, like, it was addictive almost, of just having people out there, like, just really digging what you're doing, just having fun, dancing, laughing, and being the person that's kind of creating that energy and watching people respond to it was really exhilarating.
Yeah, that is amazing. And it's so funny too because I like to connect the little dots with like things that we've done in our past, how it kind of prepares us for where we're supposed to be in the present, or something that's going to happen that we don't really know about. And like you said, you made that connection with you being on the field and being out there in front of all these people kind of still translate today in what you do,
Yeah.
That's just so cool.
Yeah.
So how do you stay grounded while trying to pursue your dreams in such a, what I call a superficial world? Because, with all of the celebrities and people who aren't celebrities thinking they're celebrities and just, that whole world and social media. And it's just so crazy. Like, how do you just stay true to who you are?
Yeah, I would say that it's the music really. Because, I'm not motivated by those things. I've told people before, like in my mind, fame, particularly in relationship to like your music or your art or whatever it is, to me, it's more of like a metric of success. It's like if I am famous one day, it's because my music has reached millions of people. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's not the goal. That's not the motivator, rather, is the fame. It's just a metric, to measure the scope and the reach that I've managed to attain as an artist. And so for me, it's like you have to kind of straddle that reality of like one foot firmly planted in like your art and your music, mm-hmm. And making sure that you're devoting all the time and energy that you can to growing in that. But then also you have to just understand the reality of exactly what you were just talking about, of like social media and like self-promotion and self-branding and self-marketing, because you can't really have one without the other anymore. Like, unless you're just an anomaly of an artist, if you're like an Adele or a Sam Smith or, somebody like that who's just got this undeniable star power, you really have to play that game. And so, what keeps me grounded is looking at that as just another aspect of like my creativity. Like, I don't have to look at the social media realm or everything else as being like something I have to do. I look at it as something that is kind of, I've given it its own little niche in this like 360 degree world of my art, I guess. And when I kind of created that paradigm shift in my mind, mm-hmm. it made it so much easier, honestly, to start coming up with strategies of how to do that. And I had a meeting right before you called me, mm-hmm. With some social media people, and that's exactly what we were talking about, was how to kind of establish a greater presence, right, in that world,
Yeah, I totally understand. Trust me. So what is the most important thing to you to maintain as you grow in the industry?
I would just say, that's a tough one. I mean, I like to think that it would be humility. I mean, just because I have lofty goals, just as I believe anyone should that's trying to accomplish something. Of course, I imagine myself, in 5 years, playing in front of, tens of thousands of people and having songs on the radio, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how I operate, because in my mind, like, why do anything if your goal is not to do it at the highest potential that you're capable of? Right. And so in my mind, I would just say, staying humble and making sure that you're taking care of the people around you as you grow. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not music, whatever you're doing. I never want to, to look back and be ashamed of like how I treated someone, or family members or friends or just anybody that I've come into contact with on this journey. And also, I would like to help people as much as I can, in terms of from a philanthropic standpoint, just because I think that I believe in the get what you give, mm-hmm. Philosophy, and so I think it's important, to keep all that in mind moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So let's talk about your EP, Magnolia Soul. I love like every song. I love Fire. I love Casanova. Oh my God, I just love it. I love your music, your voice. It's just so soulful.
Thank you.
Seriously. So
thank you.
Do you write your own songs, or how does that happen?
Yeah. I write all my own stuff. I even write for other people too. It's and I've done studio work for other artists as well, and played the role of writer producer. Wow. I've been writing since I was like 14. So like it's again, just like everything else we were talking about, how everything has kind of emerged. Mm-hmm. Songwriting is another thing that has continued to emerge in a more unique way for me. In the beginning, you're just imitating. It's just like when, a kid who wants to be a professional basketball player nowadays, like he watches LeBron James on TV and he's like, I want to emulate him because he's the best. Mm-hmm. So you do that in the same way with songwriting. You look at your favorite artist and how they impact you, and you're like, I'm going to try to do something similar to that. But at some point you have to make that shift where you move out of imitation into originality. Right. So I feel like that EP was a shifting point for me, and it helped me kind of to establish my identity a little bit more as an artist. So yeah, I wrote all those songs over the course of like probably June of 2016 to probably December of 2016, and then in January of 2017 we got in the studio and started tracking them. So yeah, they were written rather quickly, like in the grand scheme of writing. I'm proud of it for sure. It's certainly the best I've done so far, but and it's being well received overseas as well. There's like a big independent platform over there called Jamendo, and I've reached about 500,000 people over there, to the point where I'm actually starting to look at potentially going over there and playing some shows.
Yeah, you definitely should.
Absolutely. The logistics are tricky, and like visas are tricky, but I've already started making inquiries in that realm.
Nice. So when you write a song, how does it come about for you? Is it something that like just comes to you when you're just driving or in the shower or eating, or is it an experience, or?
It usually just kind of comes to me, like just kind of floats out of nowhere into my mind. Sometimes I'll actually have my instrument in hand when it happens, but I would actually say that it probably doesn't happen that way more often than not. And usually it comes first in the form of like a hook or like a chorus, like it's like my subconscious or something kind of latches on to a melody. And sometimes initially it's affiliated with like a phrase or a word or like a theme, but that tends to evolve a lot. But yeah, initially it usually starts with like a hook. Hooks are kind of my forte. It's usually the first thing that I start with whenever I'm building a song, and then I kind of work around it. Verses are actually, like, to me, the most difficult part, because they have to be interesting, but they can't, and the melody has to be slightly different than what you have in the chorus, and it has to tie the song together. So the verses are actually usually what I write last, which is a lot of people think is interesting, but yeah, that's typically how it starts for me, and then I go to a piano or a guitar, and I pair the melody that I have in my mind with a chord progression typically, and then I just play it over and over and over and over again, and then a theme kind of emerges. I kind of let the music and the idea inspire me, like, more and more and more, until I find something concrete and and unique to latch onto. And then what I typically try to do is pair that with an experience, because then if I do that, it makes everything from that point forward authentic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not just writing a song that's like popular. I'm not writing about a theme that's popular. I'm actually like taking this thing that was crafted, over the course of hours or days or minutes, and then I relate it to something in my life. That's how I write the lyrics. And so it's a kind of a weird, like, circular process, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the gist of it.
I guess those piano lessons came in handy, right?
They did.
Yeah.
And when I get blocks on the guitar, I just go to the piano. And it's been awesome at helping me just have, a second language, I guess, if you will, to work with musically.
I think it's amazing when, entertainers can play instruments. I feel like you're a real musician when you can do that. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, to me, it separates, people who just go in and like, oh, I can sing a song. And that's it,
Yeah. It's such a wide scope of people, who fall on that spectrum too.
Yeah.
Because we have, there's people who are just enormously famous who don't really play instruments, but they're still great performers, and they're still great entertainers and have great voices.
Yeah.
And then you have people on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. So I consider myself kind of in the middle,
Yeah. I think even if you once you get in and you don't know how to play something, I think you should learn. Like, it just makes all the difference. You know what I mean? Because then you're getting deep into your craft, and you're, I don't know, you're able to create from the very fundamental, basic level. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
I think it's really cool. So I see that you use social media to promote your music. What are the pros and cons of social media for you?
Yeah, so I would say to start with what would probably be classified as a con is that I'm more introverted than extroverted.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of sharing, intimate moments throughout the day is like so unnatural to me. And I mean unnatural as in like it doesn't come to me naturally. I don't mean unnatural in like a broad sense. Like, I was in the studio for 12 hours the other day, and it wasn't until probably the 8th hour that I was like, I should take a picture and share this with people.
Right.
It just doesn't occur to me, I guess. But on the other hand, I'm very socially extroverted. So like if I am in a crowd of people, or I'm at a, bar, or if I'm at an event or a function or a concert, like I'll seek people out. I'll talk to people I've never talked to before. I'll make introductions. I'll do all those things. So when I'm around real people, it's easy. So social media can be difficult for me because, for that reason, really, is that it has to be a more conscious effort on my part to be like, all right, I need to inform people that I'm not going to come into contact with on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis about what I'm doing and where I'm at in this process and this journey. And then on the other side of the spectrum, the pros of social media are that I get to stay in contact with people who are, not within my immediate proximity. So, I have family that's all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
My family is pretty like extensive. I live in Mississippi, but I'm a first generation Mississippian. My extended family on my dad's side has only been in America for a few generations. So it's, kind of from all over the place. And so it's awesome to be able to speak, to cousins and uncles and aunts and et cetera, and keep them informed about what I'm doing and be able to send them songs, when they're on the other side of the country. And, fans and followers and people. There's a lot of people in Europe now who are aware of 25, 30 years ago, that was impossible. It's a huge deal. Yeah. And so I try to look at it, on both sides. To me, it's way more of an advantage than it is a disadvantage. But like I said, struggling with the fact that I'm just naturally a bit more of an introvert.
Yeah,
it can make it a struggle sometimes.
You'll get it. I don't like it either in terms of like videoing. Like I see a lot of people, they do video casts and stuff like that, and I hate seeing myself on video. And I'm just like, oh God, I look terrible. This is horrible. I can't do this. So I'm struggling myself. So I totally get it. But it's such a great tool because I don't know, you can create your own career like on social media. So many people have done it. It's like really awesome.
Absolutely.
So do you have any other passions that you want to pursue?
I have a lot of interest just in general. So I majored in business in college with an emphasis in management and marketing and things like that. I've always been interested in having my own business one day. And to me, like music is 100% my passion and what I'm trying to build my platform off of. But I would like to, at some point, once I'm established, expand into other ventures.
Yeah.
I'm really drawn towards renewable energy. Like I do a lot of research and just reading on stuff like that. I love Elon Musk and people like that in the industry who are just pushing the boundaries. I have a lot of like scientific interests, which I think that science and music share a lot of similarities. And you see a lot of scientists who are also musicians. You see a lot of musicians who are interested in science because in my mind, like they're actually more similar than they are different. Which is kind of a conversation for another time, but yeah. So yeah, that's certainly something I'm really interested in, and I like philosophy as well. Just anything that kind of creates. One of the reasons I'm really drawn to music and writing and stuff like that is that I just like the idea of kind of exploring the unknown, like the fact that I can like write a song and it's the first and only version, of that song that exists ever. Such an interesting idea to me. And so I guess I kind of take that fascination and I apply it in other fields and in other, areas of study. And so I would like to expand upon that, as I grow up and continue to do what I'm doing. And like I said, I'd also like to keep a philanthropic aspect of that intact as well. So I can't give you any super specific stuff right now, but that's kind of a broad strokes.
That's okay.
Goal.
I love that. What do you feel are some of your struggles professionally with getting to that next level?
Yeah. Again, like it's the double-edged sword of the internet, I guess. And like digital music can be frustrating sometimes because, again, like the internet is amazing. Way more good than bad has come out of it, in my opinion, even though like a lot of people would probably disagree because it's just become like a battleground lately. But the fact that, like, again, you can create your own brand and your own music, and you can spread it to anywhere on the planet, and people can latch onto that, and you can use it to create a career. It is amazing. But at the same time, it's made this space so competitive and so saturated that now you're having to compete with just like millions of people who are doing the same thing, basically. And so it is difficult, but at the same time, once you get over that, whole like feeling sorry for yourself phase, you start realizing that what it's doing is like it's helping us push these creative boundaries so much more quickly, because when we're aware of each other, all over the world, musically and artistically, it makes us venture outwards more profoundly because we're looking for ways to be unique. And so it's created that situation for me, certainly. I would say one of the disadvantages is, I would consider that a really small disadvantage of just the competitive space, but at the same time, I think it's good for music. One of the other ones is just like, I love all kinds of music. It's a little disconcerting sometimes to know how easy it is to manipulate music in a digital way. And so I think what it does is it actually makes it difficult in some ways for people who have more of like a natural talent to shine through, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, 30 years ago, if you couldn't sing, there was no remedy for that. They couldn't throw auto-tune on your voice and fix it. You know what I mean? It was like you had to have the talent to do that in a serious way.
Yeah.
So I think that's one little thing. But then again, like, it is what it is. I'd say that sometimes it makes it harder to get noticed would be the main thing.
Yeah, it really does. I was listening to the radio one day and they were talking about how some of these artists or people who, are making music, and the music might not necessarily be that great, but because they're making such spectacles of themselves, they're getting so many downloads and people watching these videos and then downloading what they're saying or doing. And then they get pushed up to the top because of the things that they're doing and saying more so than the real talent.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I think that's one of the things that Kanye is known for, is just like kind of thriving on, he knows how to play the game so well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And same with his wife. I mean, that's kind of why they inhabit the space they do in the world of celebrity, is that they know how to play the game.
Yeah.
And work it to their advantage. And like, you can have whatever opinion you want about that, but at the end of the day, they're good at it. You can't deny that.
You definitely have to know how to play that game. I mean, did you see on Super Bowl Sunday, Kylie decides to come out and say, "Hey guys, I really was pregnant. I just had my baby."
Yeah.
It's like, you had the baby like 3 days ago. Why did you wait until Super Bowl Sunday? So, I mean, hey, they're pretty smart.
Yeah, you got to give them that.
You
got to give them that.
Absolutely. What do you sacrifice the most to pursue your dreams?
Probably money. Because I could be doing, a lot of other things that would give me more financial security. But it's tough, when you're starting out and you're still trying to grow your audience and find your niche and everything to make money in the world of streaming. So, yeah, that's one thing. But again, it's just an obstacle that I've been constantly, working on overcoming, and it's created more creativity for me in other aspects of my marketing and branding and stuff like that. So I would say that's probably the main thing, because I mean, my quality of life is still really high in my opinion. Like I'm not like struggling, you know what I mean? I don't ever subscribe to the struggling artist mindset, because I think it puts you at a disadvantage to imagine yourself being that way. But I mean, I have what I need, and I have a great girlfriend, and I have a great family and great friends. And so, yeah, if anything, it's the money. But again, it's like I could be doing something else that made me, a lot more money, and I I wouldn't be half as happy. So in my mind, it's only a sacrifice because like that's just how our system is designed. Is
right.
The more money, more comfort in that sense. But yeah, ultimately, like I know that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, and that if I continue to chip away at this, then like the success from a monetary standpoint will come in due time.
Absolutely, it sure will. One day, Seth, you're gonna have so much money you're not gonna know what to do.
I hope so.
You will.
Yeah.
So what are you the most proud of with where you are today?
I would say just the growth that I've had, not even just as an artist, but just as an individual, really. I'm 25 years old. I just turned 25. I started, doing this professionally about two and a half years ago. Mm-hmm. And I would say that 2 to 2.5 years ago, I was not even like remotely ready for like success on a major scale. Like not even close. I was still in this like I'm just gonna be the talent, and I'm gonna try to surround myself with people who can fill in all the gaps for me. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of subjected myself to those types of people, and it didn't work out very well. And so again, like things that were seeming failures were actually just lessons about like, all right, man, if you want to do this, then like you got to figure all this other stuff out. And so once I made that decision, it became just like a binary thing. It's like I went from a 0 to a 1, and I was like, all right, I'm about to do this. And I got all the books, I listened to all the podcasts. I educated myself on every single facet of what I'm doing. And what that does is it gives you the power, of knowledge, and like knowing, what to do and what not to do in certain situations, what people to work with and which people to not work with. So it really helped me grow professionally in a lot of ways, but also it helped facilitate the growth of my identity as an artist and just as a person, because there was obstacles, and like those are the only things really that promote growth is when you have that you have those challenges. And again, like going back to like my upbringing, as an athlete, and like being really, really comfortable with obstacles and challenges, like I was never in a position where I felt defeated. I just was always in a position where I felt like I had to get better. Mm-hmm. And now, like 2.5 years later, I feel like I've come just like leagues and leagues and leagues beyond where I was in every single way, honestly. And I just started recording my first full-length album, 12 songs. It's undeniably like the best music I've ever made. I'm just like over the moon about how great everything sounds already. So I'm seeing this upward incline of growth and where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. And it's just, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like I think I would, if I had just been lucky in the beginning, mm-hmm. and been spotted by someone big and they're like, oh, we're going to pour all this money into you, make you this, make you that, I think I would be miserable, honestly, because I think I still would have no idea who I am, right, as an artist and as a person. So that would be what I'm, most satisfied and proud of.
That's a great answer. And I love that you realize that and you look back at all of that stuff as learning and growing. And that's just amazing.
Thank you.
So, and happy birthday, by the way.
Thanks. It was actually in October, so I guess it was not that recent.
Still, whatever. I love birthdays.
Yeah, me too.
So because this is the Oh Hell No podcast, so the Oh Hell No and my podcast is about those moments throughout our journey where we just have to pause and be like, oh hell no, did that just happen to me? Or maybe, oh hell no, that just happened, it's great. It could be bad, it could be good, whatever. So you have to share something with us that has happened where you were like, oh hell no, either in your head or you said it out loud.
Okay. I'm just gonna go with literally the first thing that came to my mind.
Okay.
Which was, again, it like kind of plays back into what I was talking about earlier. But like I said, I had that brief stint with an indie label. Mm-hmm. And like, on paper, everything looked solid. But again, I kind of handed myself over to them almost, and from a creative vision standpoint. And so we did this music video, and man, they just like didn't know about, they tried to like create me into like just what was like socially acceptable at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was so far off image wise in every other way that like I just had one of those moments, while we were filming it, where I was just like, all right, everybody stop. Like this, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting about like what the hell we're doing right now.
Right.
because this shit is not right. And that was the beginning of creating. But again, it was like, that was my biggest hell no moment, because it was the first time in the process that I was like, I have to take control of this. Like, I have to be like the one who determines how this is going to go down, or else I'm just at the whims of everyone else.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that was a big one. And it caught a lot of people, by surprise, because I'm a relatively like easygoing, soft-spoken person. And even that aspect of me has changed a little bit, just because, you realize that as you grow, you got to teach people how to treat you and how to interact with you professionally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that was my big one.
That was your oh hell no moment. You were like, oh hell no,
yeah.
cut this damn show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. That's good too. And even like an experience like that had to happen for you to be stronger and know that when you get to that place where you really have to stand up for yourself, you'll be able to do it with no problem. Or when you you see it going left, you'll be like, I know what this is and I'm not with it. So it was such a pleasure speaking with you today. I want you to tell everyone where they can listen to your music and how to keep up with all things Seth Power.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Facebook. You can type in Seth Power Music and my music page will pull up. Instagram is probably where I'm, most involved in terms of posting and sharing music and stuff like that. But I always upload stuff to Facebook as well. But yeah, Instagram, if you type in @Seth Power Music, it'll come up. I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet very often because, like, to me, 2 platforms is like my maximum almost. But
yeah.
But same on there, Seth Power Music. So it's pretty. If you just Google Seth Power Music, pretty much all my stuff comes out because I had the luxury of not having to compete with many people in terms of my name. So that's pretty sweet. But yeah, in terms of the music, I'm on like pretty much all digital platforms, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Google, Amazon, pretty much anywhere that they offer music, SoundCloud, et cetera, et cetera. So again, if you just type in Seth Power, I've never found another artist with that name. So I should be the first person that pops up.
Yeah, that's a great name too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Nicole.